Okay, so if we move past the more deep mechanical concerns of BFA, there's one really simple problem that this expansion had. It just did not feel that rewarding to play. Well, with patch 8.2, we have seen Blizzard at least say that they're attempting to solve this problem through a range of either new or iterated upon systems. So with that, do Blizzard understand why the 8.0 to 8.1 cycle did not feel good to progress through? Well, it's time to look at what's coming in 8.2 and find out. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Rise of Ashara video. So, in this video we're going to be going through the new reward and progression systems of this patch in order to work out if it has a chance of saving BFA from its largest problem, which basically was that at its core, BFA was very unrewarding. Now, you won't really hear the progression rating only sort of gameplay only focused people talk about this stuff as much, but for the average WoW player, I think what they want is lots of rewards to earn and many different ways to progress their character. That's what keeps most people playing the game, and that's really where the launch of BFA kind of mucked up. First, the Aldir gear was pretty weak and there was no sets, so there was less to pursue there. The Warfront sets were unlocked extremely quickly. Many mounts came from pure RNG or were just direct purchases from vendors. There basically weren't any side systems to progress your character alongside other than the Azerite gear and Heart of Azeroth, which were very unsatisfying indeed, and both mechanically and visually. Now, contrast that to Legion, right? Legion had players working through their class order halls, had them unlocking their artifact tints, they were going through entirely reworked progression, and through all of Suramar as well, which is a lot of content, plus its withered scenario. There was a lot of stuff there, so it's very easy to see why BFA underperformed. So with that in mind, let's see how 8.2 measures up. Now, Nazjatar, yeah, it's the more traditional of the two areas. You've got your standard reputation progression that is going to exist in this zone. On top of that, you're building up your allies' base as you do the content there. That means that you likely will have some visual and mechanical progression through that zone. You then have the 3 combat allies. Each of them has their 30 levels of progression, with you getting cosmetic rewards for, leveling them up and that stuff for your character. So already with this zone, we are seeing more forms of progression and reward, and that's really without us knowing if the souped up world quest design of Nazjatar will mean much for its reward loop. So that's 3 bars to fill, a base to build up over time, and a few weeks of story content, plus whatever stuff is, just strewn around the zone through the rares and all of that stuff. Is it revolutionary? No, but I think it is adding in new methods of progression the Battle for Azeroth did not ship with, and that is a good thing. Next up for Mecha Gone, well, this is where things get a lot more interesting. First, unlike Nazjatar and the 8.0 and 8.1 content, Mecha Gone is sort of self-service content, i.e., you tackle it how you want. It's not throttled or time-gated other than the dungeon release state, seemingly having infinitely grindable elements just like the Timeless Isle. That means it's a very different mode of gameplay from the rest of BFA and indeed from, well, really the rest of Legion. Based on the success of the Timeless Isles, it could work out quite well. Now, the zone itself, like the Timeless Isles, is full of secrets and rares that are actually rare, including ones that are summoned in through secrets, and if it's anything like the Timeless Isles, then that will mean loads of new mounts and cosmetics and just generally interesting consumables from those rares and secrets. What's better though is how it could impact gameplay. If Mecha Gone is a play as you want zone and you're just out there grinding out some hand-ins and then a big important zone-wide rare spawns, then that's going to feel just like the Timeless Isle, and that's going to spice up the gameplay, giving you rushes of excitement and true MMO-like moments where big zergs of players are converging on a powerful enemy, which is pretty good. The zone then has daily variation through its visitors, who are also going to change elements of the spawning in the zone, and each one of those visitors has a daily. Those dailies will be the most time-efficient way to increase your Mecha Gone reputation, which means that yes, on top of all that stuff, Mecha Gone does have a traditional rep. There are then loads of temporary rewards like the various grenades and the gadgets that will feed back into the gameplay in the other zones, as well as the machine repairs that you can do within Mecha Gone. Then in terms of progression, you're slowly building up the settlement of Rustbolt. I assume that will widen the scope of what you can do on a daily basis and probably provide you with some nice benefits. Then as a form of progression, things here seem to be quite tangible because of that. And then again, as with Nazjatar, it's a form of progression that we've not really seen in BFA thus far. There's then the various other rewards like the cat mount, which itself is interesting in that it has unlockable tints. That's an idea that could be really carried far. And again, it's Blizzard deepening the reward progression of that item in a way that's not relating to player power, and that is, I think, what's really important. Jeremy also mentioned building a battle robot only to find out that it turns into a spider bot mount. And he really was just trying to, I think, show the playful nature of the zone's unlocks. So you're building up a city, you're getting loads of cosmetics, you are making useful items that you can take to other places, and then it also just has a regular reputation worth of rewards and progression. So yes, Mecha Gone seems to be offering modes of reward and progression that BFA basically hasn't really seen before. First, let's call out one new type of item that I think is really cool. And yeah, before we sort of go into the Heartforge, let's just talk about this new Mecha Gone Trinket. This is an extremely cool design. So the Trinket has 3 punch card slots. You can then collect punch cards and you can put whatever cards you want into the Trinket as long as the slot colors line up. Now, from what they've shown us, the yellow punch cards are just different stat combinations. The red punch cards seem to be proc effects, you know, stuff like gaining 10% haste on dealing damage, or, well, one of them is an on use that applies damage to a nearby target and targets of the same type, and then the other one is just a straight up damage blast that pulses every 0.5 seconds for 2.5 seconds. And then finally, the blue punch cards seem to be more utility oriented. So there's one that lets you track nearby mechanical creatures, there's one that lets you manipulate Mecha Gone foes, and one that increases your lung capacity by 1000%. And you know what? This is fantastic. This is almost a miniature version of the Heartforge. You can get the stat punch card that you want, you can then get a selection of different effects to choose from, and then vary the utility punch card based on whatever you want. So this Trinket in one slot provides so much more progression than just about any other single slot thing. I mean, technically there's more customization in this than there would be out of an Azerite slot, I suppose, just that it also doesn't have the annoyances of the Azerite system. So with this, we're seeing Blizzard continue to experiment with gear reward design. And I say continue because, of course, the Crucible of Storms has some of the most interesting loot in the game, with everything having some form of green text effect, with many of them actually having upsides and downsides. So I think this stuff is fantastic, and I think it's far better than having, you know, just everything be tied to your artifact power level. I think BFA really has shown us the downsides of that. Now, sure, raid bots destroys all of this, but we can't design the entire game around raid bots, for if we did, it would just end up being a, you know, perfectly balanced clinical thing that I think would actually be of a smaller appeal. Indeed, if you look at a lot of what people loved about TBC and Classic, it is some of those more wacky, out there interactions. Next up, the Heartforge. So this is something that people have said is similar to the Netherlight Crucible, and that's entirely wrong. I mean, that's either said with a lack of knowledge or in bad faith, because it's just entirely false mechanically. So if you're about to comment that this is just the Netherlight again, just stop and listen. The Heartforge is a deterministic reward system with no item levels or titan forging. The essences that you use with it come from set sources. Some of those may be content drops, others are reportedly from achievements and other objectives. So yes, they do come in quality levels, green, blue, epic, and legendary, but the legendary ones are only cosmetic, and that means that people feel like they are not going to need to be, you know, completely on top of the game in the hardest content for power reasons, but they will feel like if they do that super hard content, they'll be getting a unique visual reward. Now, these are also going to be permanent unlocks, unlike the relics of the Netherlight Crucible. If anything, it's far more like a souped up glyph system. But still, the core is this: set sources, no RNG. So when an essence is unlocked, it's just added to your list of owned essences. If you have a green version of an essence and then you mouse over it, then the mouse over tooltip will tell you where the next version comes from. And as you move from green to blue to epic, they gain additional mechanics. For an example, a spell moving from being once every 30 seconds to being, well, 2 charges with a 30-second recharge time. Now, a total of 21 have been revealed so far, meaning that's 21 abilities to mix and match spread across the existing roles. Now, if you'd like a mechanical sort of deeper dive on them, you can check out my video on that, but I'll say this: they seem to slot in pretty well with the design of classes, even though they're not class-specific, they are role-specific. So the question is this: does having 5 to 8 new abilities to choose from and mix and match beat having 1 ability for your spec? I think it's hard to tell there, but it could be kind of close. Now, what's important is there's no AP grind, there's no re-unlocking of traits because of that, and unlike the Azerite gear, there is no reforge cost. These are treated like talents, so people are not going to be punished for experimenting. So yeah, this is 21 new active and passive abilities, of which you always have 3 passives and 1 active be on your character. That's quite a lot, and importantly, it's designed in a way where they're permanent unlocks. That means that if you have a completionist mindset, well, you just now have a big list of things to get through doing the content of the game. You can go out there, you can work through collecting them, and as you do, you'll get more things to customize your character with. Now, this may not be ideal for the hardcore players, and I do expect a bit of pushback from them, but I think this will be a more satisfying system for most of the players of the game, and I don't think it's repeating the mistakes of Azerite. AP balance-wise, Blizzard have said that the 3 heart slots will either unlock quickly enough that raiders won't need to worry, or will unlock slowly enough that they won't be able to grind. Basically, Blizzard said their goal is to not repeat the patch 8.1 into Desara lore grind, which is a very good thing indeed. Now, losing this after the X-Pack will feel really bad, as did losing the artifacts, but Blizzard did seem to hint in recent interviews that they're more okay with adding baseline class progression in the next expansion, so likely another talent row, maybe some other stuff on top of that. That should be enough to make up for the fact that yes, our external class stuff will go away after this expansion, and then hopefully after BFA, they rely less on that external class stuff and just progress our classes more as the expansions roll over. So what have we covered in this video? Well, we've got the 2 new zones. They each have their own forms of progression. They have their own progression loops within themselves, like the upgrading of Rustbolt and the leveling up of your 3 combat allies. That seems pretty good. We've got that new punch card Trinket, which seems like a fundamentally new type of Trinket design, and also comes along with the Crucible of Storms gear, which is quite well designed indeed. We then, of course, have the new Heartforge, which, again, while I suspect there'll be a lot of skepticism about it, when I look at it, what do I see? Well, I see, 21 new active abilities, and for your role, you choose which one you want. You can mix and match. There's no item level stuff associated with it. There's no Titan forging. There's no weird RNG. It doesn't seem to have the core problems of the Azerite system, basically, and it just is there to give you some customization. Of course, raid bots will solve it, but, that's just for the raiding context. If you want to make a crazy AoE build by maybe doing something with your punch card Trinket, and then having a specific set of Azerite gear, and then going for the AoE stuff on your Heart of Azeroth, and then talenting your character into an AoE build, well, I think that's the type of class gameplay that a system like this could help to support, and if it is able to do that, then it's a really good form of reward. So overall, I think that what I've talked about here are many different ways in which Blizzard are trying to make forms of reward and forms of progression that are more satisfying than the core of BFA. It seems like they understand why a good amount of BFA was not satisfying to people, and this patch so far seems to be basically a direct response to that. And that's why I'm feeling pretty good about things so far, at least in terms of the developers' intent. Whether their actions line up with their intent, we will have to see, and that is what the PTR process is for, and yes, I will go into that PTR, obviously with a skeptical mind, given everything that has happened in the last year. But so far things are sounding pretty good. So, in those comments, let me know what you think about all of these different systems. If you haven't checked the channel, there's like 4 other videos in the last 20 hours to check out, so there's a lot there. And yeah, with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.